Well, that's all she wrote for the 2014 Stanley Cup Playoffs. But it was definitely another entertaining postseason this year, and the Los Angeles Kings were able to rise back to the top to claim their second Stanley Cup title in 3 years. Before we close things out though, let's check in with PK to get his thoughts.
I love making bets on the awards show. It's such easy money.
Hey PK!
What? Will you stop that?
No. Come on, the playoffs are over and we've got a good amount to talk about. So, to get the ball rolling, what was your favorite part of the first 3 rounds?
The first 3 rounds, huh? Well, I'd have to say that it would be Montreal making it to the 3rd round. Who knew they'd get by Boston? But there is one other thing that actually stood out for me. That would be LA, who was down 3-0 in the series against the San Jose Sharks to win 4 straight games and to defeat the San Jose Sharks, and then to go on to the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, only a handful of teams have come from behind 3-0. They're now one of the elite groups that's actually managed to do it this year. This has to be the best thing I have ever seen, and also the best thing you would see in the first 3 rounds.
Considering that there have only ever been 3 other teams to make comebacks like that ever, I'd have to agree. Plus, there was also Minnesota's upset of Colorado in the first round, which I find interesting since it was Patrick Roy's first playoff test as a coach, playing against the last team he faced as a player, and as before his team lost to the underdog Minnesota club in 7 games. Then in the second round, there was also the Rangers' comeback from a 3-1 deficit against Pittsburgh, a collapse we haven't seen from the Penguins since they dropped a similar lead against Tampa Bay in the 2011 playoffs. Plus, you had LA pull off yet another comeback against Anaheim. And, you know, that gets me thinking. The Kings had a weird run this year, didn't they? Come back from a 3-0 deficit in the first round. Come back from a 3-2 deficit in the second round. Squander a 3-1 lead in the third round, but luckily win Game 7. And then dominate in the finals. What do you think about that?
I really think that LA has some horseshoes in places that I don't even want to think about. Yeah. I mean, they won the first 3 rounds, and they were close games, and then they dominated in the Stanley Cup Finals. I thought there'd be closer games between the Rangers. I thought it actually would go 7 games, but it didn't. With that being said, 3 of the 5 games went into overtime. LA Kings won all 3 games in overtime. They were dominating in the overtime. They came out strong, and 2 of them went into double overtime. There's got to be a lot of tired players there, but once again, LA. Who knew? That and the posts were the goalie's best friends. I mean, I heard that iron ring so many times. Do you know how many posts there were? Did you count them at all?
I don't know about an exact number, but it was enough to keep you on the edge of your seat during those overtime games. But yeah, LA seemed to have all the luck this year, unlike any of their opponents, or even more so, Montreal's rotten luck in the 3rd round with their goaltender.
Let's talk about that for a second. I know I saw on my feed people were asking things like, why are they not playing him? When I reply back that he's injured, people start asking, well, why don't they say he's injured? For the people who don't know the politics behind playoff hockey, you don't announce your injuries ever. No matter what, because if they come back, they'll be able to play, but they may still be injured. And that gives the other team an advantage. I mean, I know so many times where I've heard at the end of the season or the end of the playoff series or whenever, that they've announced that this person has an injury, this person has an injury, but yet they were playing. A lot of people play with their injuries just so that they don't give the other team the upper hand.
That's true. I remember Brendan Shanahan recounting Detroit's '98 championship run and how they could hear the screams of teammate Brent Gilchrist coming from the trainer's room before each game in the playoffs as the trainers tried to treat a pretty bad groin injury enough so he could play. Those commercials that joke around about hockey players finding anything they can to patch up an injury so they can keep on playing are not that exaggerated. But moving on, what did you think of the finals this year? I mean, despite the overtime games we got, I felt a little let down after having 6 straight years where the finals went at least 6 games, if not more.
I have to agree. Seeing LA with a 3-0 series lead, it was kind of disappointing. I mean, this is the Stanley Cup Finals. You pretty much know the writing's on the wall. And even though LA came back against San Jose and won 4 straight, you pretty much could guarantee you weren't going to see this on this series. This is pretty much going to be the one that, well, LA's got it. It was a little bit of a disappointing thing overall. I don't know, like it didn't feel like a true final after seeing all these other finals. This one was a little boring. I mean, I'm happy who won. I just thought it'd be a little bit more of a battle. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, but I guess there's always next year. Just so long as it doesn't turn into another streak like we had from 95 to 98, where each Stanley Cup Final Series ended in a sweep. Well, I guess that's it for the 2013-2014 NHL season. Neither of us predicted the winner this year, but between the two of us, I predicted one of the Stanley Cup finalists, so point goes to me this year. Thanks for joining me again for the playoffs, PK, and we'll continue our annual battles again next year.
Once again, it's awesome being on here. And giving predictions this year was a tough one, but I'm glad because it wasn't so predictable. In fact, it was actually kind of fun. Let's hope next year isn't as predictable.
Well, that's all for our coverage of the 2014 Stanley Cup Playoffs. But before we go, there's one final piece of business to take care of.
Oh, come on!